Thank you very much. Honorable members, may you please take your positions. Welcome, sir. I don't want to call your name. You'll say it yourself when you introduce yourself. But in introducing yourself, you must also tell us as to why are you interested in the post. But again, just a summary of your, in 1 minute of your, what is reflected in your CV, particularly around your work experience. But also tell us if you are a member of other boards, as well as if, is there any issue around conflict of interest as a board member, if you're appointed. The floor is yours. We'll give you 5 minutes to say all of that. And when members ask questions, each member will ask questions and will respond to those questions, and all that in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Honorable Chair and the committee members. My name is Jim Matsho. I grew up in Pretoria in Mabopane. I completed my high school at Ngakamasego High School in the township, and then I went to the University of the North, where I did my BCom degree, and then I did honors in business economics, and then thereafter I went to Vista in Mamelodi. I did another honors in economics, and then immediately I did a master's in marketing at the University of Pretoria. And immediately after that, I completed my MBA at UNISA. And then when I moved to KZN, I did my master's in economics at the University of Zululand. And then also I did a diploma in corporate law at the University of Johannesburg. And the last degree that I've got is a Master of Commerce in Leadership at UKZN. And then at TEFLIOP, I was the best student in economics. I represented the university twice. I came to Parliament in 1996 and 97 under the Nedbank budget speech competition. And then thereafter, I joined Shell Retail. I was based in Johannesburg, where I was looking after an area in the retail department, where I was managing service stations in terms of appointing dealers and all that, including training of the staff. And then in 2001, I relocated to KwaZulu-Natal, where I joined Mondi. I was based in Zululand. The role there was for me to resuscitate a unit which was called Kulanati, where Mondi was assisting rural communities to plant forestry trees, the gum trees, so that when the trees, timber is ready, then it will be transported or supplied to Mondi in terms of the pulp mill. Yes, I performed during that period in terms of the operation. Then I was seconded to lead another subsidiary of Mondi, Siat Forestry, in KwaZulu-Natal, which was a former state plantation forestry under Sabc. Then I managed the business, and I achieved the result in terms of transformation, BEE, and also operational excellence. And over the period, I also received awards in Mondi. And after that, I left Mondi to be on my own. And going back also to TEFLIOP, I received free bursaries. Under the first one was from the South African Institute of Race Relations for the BCom, and also the Haggard Trust for my honors. And at the time, I also thank the leadership of the SRC under the current Premier of Gauteng, who was the SRC president, because they allowed some of us where parents couldn't pay, as long as academically you progress, the university was not allowed to expel you. And that's how I got the free bursary. During my third year, all the 3 years I was owing, and the bursary paid everything. And I'm a testimony that in terms of issue of free education. And in case that then the Department of Economic Development in KwaZulu-Natal with the United Nations also sponsored me to do a master's in terms of LED, so that to capacitate people around the province, so that in terms of rural development, assisting communities, more especially those who are more affected or working with local municipalities. My work experience, as I indicated, I've been in forestry, I've been in petrol industry, but currently I'm more in agriculture in terms of farming, either crop or animal, but I also do consulting in terms of forestry in Zooland. And I'm also a trustee for Kulanati. I chair Kulanati Forestry Board. I'm sitting on the National Skills Authority Board under the Department of Higher Education and Training that we report to the Minister, Dr. Blayden Nzimande, in terms of policy matters, in terms of policy. And yes, I also represented, as I indicated, the university here in Cape Town. And other boards where I serve is where in the companies where I've got shares. And in terms of conflict, for the SABC in particular, I've never done business with the SABC. And the only person who used to work for the SABC was my brother-in-law. He left the SABC around 2003. And in terms of my family, no one is linked to the SABC currently, and also even my partner. And even the business partners that I work with, no one is dealing with a public broadcaster.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Shall I start with Honorable Kongbele to raise questions? Your 5 minutes start.
Thank you for allowing this opportunity to interact with us. In short, currently, as you sit there, can you share with us the key challenges facing SABC? 2, how does the Broadcasting Act advise us on the objects of the institution as articulated in the Act? And if you can also share with us the governance imperative as they find expression in the board charter. You've got 4 minutes.
Thanks, Honorable Member. In terms of the challenges for now, as we know, is the issue of governance, more especially at the board level, and also in terms of the financial sustainability of the public broadcaster. Also, the other issue for me is how the SABC is viewed by the public, whether what they produce and also what they deliver to the communities, more especially where I operate in rural communities. SABC should be able to offer what you call public value in such a way that every South African will be proud that this is our this is our state entity, and it's also inspiring, educating, because my view is also on the education of young people. How do you link the skills shortage gap to inform the communities that these are the rare skills that we are looking for as the country, and how can the SABC come on board, more especially in terms of partnership with the institutions like, at the TV colleges. Yesterday, Dr. Blayden Nzimande indicated that he encouraged, or he would like to see more women being trained as artisans. And obviously, SABC can come in partnership with, all the TV colleges in all the provinces to make sure that that goal is achieved at the end of the day. In terms of the Act, the Act governs the public broadcaster, and we know that government is the main shareholder 100%, and the minister in terms of oversight, and also including the committee in terms of reports. What is very critical is to make sure that the institution deliver in terms of the mandate as stipulated in the Act, so that all South Africans could see the value of the public broadcaster, and also in terms of the governance, in terms of the charter. That obviously will be agreed between the minister and the board, which are the key performance areas which will be monitored quarterly, and the board must make sure that the executives deliver in terms of those goals. Otherwise, if they don't deliver, then it becomes a problem. But if they deliver, then obviously the public will be able to see and view that the public broadcaster deliver on what is actually the mandate. And during the process, in terms of the charter, the role of the board, in terms of the management, in terms of committees, and also in terms of the executive, who reports to the board, what reports should come to the board, and which ones should be approved. In terms of finance also, when do you start to prepare budget so that when it comes to the portfolio committee, everything has been done properly in-house, and also to make sure that Parliament will be able to provide funds for the SABC to deliver in terms of the mandate, so that South Africans can be able to see the value that the public broadcaster is adding. Thanks.
Honorable Tsede.
Mr. Matsho, how are you? Is it Matsho? Okay, Matsho. Okay. If I was looking at your CV, I see you're already serving on about 7 or 8 spots. If appointed, how do you see yourself balancing all these things?
Half of those boards are where I'm a shareholder, where I've got control in terms of shares, and the other boards like the WIDA in Limpopo, Waterberg Economic Development Agency, and the NSA. For me, I don't work for a corporate. I've done my part in terms of delivering. I'm my own boss. If all these boards before year end, they'll give us a diary, I'll be able to plan. I've got no problem, including even the TV college where I'm serving at Mtashana. For me, it's a matter of having the diary and plan accordingly. And where I'm the chair, obviously, if there are conflicts in terms of dates, I'll contact my fellow board members to rearrange the dates, and I've got no problem.
No, it's fine. There's a debate going on about which suggests that the role and the powers of the executive directors be reviewed. What's your take on that? Will it be a good thing to do, and why?
Obviously, the parliamentarians as policymakers, through or using what happened before, if the review proposals will add in terms of enhancing the board going forward, there's no problem. Because every policy over a period of time can be reviewed as long as it will add and assist the board to deliver on their fiduciary duties.
The last one, right? Do I still have a minute or so? Digital migration. What's your understanding? And what does it mean to the SABC?
Okay, thanks, Honorable Tsedi. In terms of digital migration, I've read in the news in terms of the delays and also the timeline that it should happen by end of December next year. With that project of SKA, that for us as a country is going to, or help for the country to develop skills in the science and technology, where the Department of Science and Technology will play a key role. Now, as the SABC, obviously, we should look at making partnership with the key stakeholders to make sure that during the rollout, the communities are informed and the communities are part and parcel of the process, and to make sure that the department or SABC can reach the target by end of next year, which is almost less than 18 months or 16 months to go. Now, it means for now, the department should move speedily to make sure that it reaches that goal so that they don't extend beyond next year, December.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Kalako, do you have anything?
Thank you, Chair. Evening, Mr. Matsho. Are you aware of the delegation of authority framework? If you are aware, can you just take us through on it? What does it entail?
Okay, thanks, Honorable Kalako. You'll bear with me, I can't see clearly the names because of the light. Yes. The shareholder will engage the board through the chair in terms of arrangement to say these are the delegation of authority in terms of the signing powers, so that the board can approve. If you go to like committees like investment, where proposals for investment for CapEx are presented, the board should know their parameters, how far can they go, and then even the executives, because once that is done with the shareholder, then the board, through the chair and through the committee, will submit a proposal that,
Oh, thanks, Chair.
okay.
Thanks, Chief. How does it relate to board charter?
As part of the charter, should be one of the deliverables in terms of the KPIs that the minister should sign with the board, and the board make sure they monitor and deliver and manage the risk in terms of delivery on the ground.
Thank you very much, Honorable Delashe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. If Mr. Matsho can, going back to the question that was raised by Mr. Honorable Tsedi, if he can convince the committee if he can be appointed, given the fact that the SABC needs a lot of attention because of the immediate history that is coming out from. How would you do all that, given the fact that you are sitting in many boards, which is not a problem, but I really need you to convince us. Secondly, Chairperson, if you can talk more about the digital migration in a convincing manner. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Member. In terms of me personally, I'll bring different skills. I've served in different boards, and I went through different training in terms of governance, like the IoT courses. I was a board member at the BMF. I was also reporting to the board as SQF, and I'll bring because for me, I'll bring a different type of skill to the board, and also to advise the board, more especially on the rural communities. You know, how is the SABC viewed in terms of delivering on their mandate, so that that can be seen properly and in a better way for the community. And I've got the skills. I mean, I've got 7 degrees. I've been there, and I've been trained. I've delivered where I've worked. If you go to my SQF days, I mean, I was able to assist the company through performance for the shareholders to pay their loan in 18 months when I was there, and I've received accolades. Now, I'll bring that into the board, especially as I indicated in terms of the local economic development, because that's where we need to develop. That's where South Africa needs more in terms of delivery, so that the rural people should see economic development happening in their areas, and that's where I will be able to assist the board. And I've served like at other boards where I can bring my experience. And I've served also in committees in finance, in HR, in terms of skills development. To say to the SABC, I've seen, I mean, in their BE scorecard, you know, in terms of skills development, they've just got around 50%, and something should be done to make sure that the throughput, the training is done properly to build the skills for the future for the SABC for that one. In terms of the digital migration, as I indicated, is to move from the current analog in terms of the set-top boxes, as the plan is to provide 5 million in terms of South African households which are regarded as poor. And as I indicated, it's the matter of planning to make sure that by next year that is done properly. But we need skills to make sure that this delivery can be able to be achieved by next year, December. Thanks.
I don't have much, Chair. I've gone through your FET CV, and I discovered that the law is is your area. I want you just to send a message out there to our youth, new generation future of our country, to convince them how best the law, when you read according to the law. Because I see the laws is the best in this country. I just need your message out there, because I see your direction is good and directive in a way. Also, my last, Chair, because I wasn't think I will say anything, but I'm so interested when I read your CV. And okay, let me stop there, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable
The last
Fundam.
one, I'm sorry, Chair. I want to know from you, do you understand the Broadcasting Act? If you understand, what is the best act in the broadcast that you think maybe will make SABC to be strong more when you selected as a board member, if you selected as a board member?
Thanks, Honorable Matsho. In terms of the law, for me, the message to the young South African, especially the youth, my specialty is more in economics, leadership, and all that. I just did the diploma in corporate law just to understand in terms of the legal matters for contracts and all that. But for me, it's for the young South Africans to understand, especially the constitution of the country, so that at the end of the day, for them to be empowered, and which is very important for me, is education. The youth must study to make sure that they understand and they specialize in the areas in the field they've chosen, because that will help us, more especially as we are in the BRICS, to compete with our BRICS counterparts. And in terms of the Act, I've been through the Act. For me, as the new board member, obviously there'll be an induction where I'll be taken through critical sections of the Act. But the area where I see, maybe, especially in terms of the amendment, that need to be looked carefully is the role of the board. I saw there's an issue about appointment, disqualification of board members. That should be clear in such a way that an independent board member can't just be removed by his or her colleagues because of her views or his views. It should be in such a way that the integrity of individuals are protected and the process is fair at the end of the day. Thank you.
Honorable Fundam.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Matsho, and thank you very much for making yourself available. You have a very impressive CV. Like you said, 7 degrees. 7 degrees. So thank you for putting your name forward. I am looking for, so we obviously are looking for South Africa's best to serve on this board. And also what I'm really looking for is people who will bring innovation to the SABC. People who have fresh ideas. We have great ideas about how we can fix the SABC, make sure that the SABC can self-sustain. So those are the kind of ideas that I'm looking for. So if you can give me one idea about how we improve the SABC, what would that idea be?
Okay, thanks, Honorable Van Dam. In terms of the financial sustainability, is the issue of the revenue. The board obviously should, with the guiding the executives, to make sure that SABC get into more partnerships, especially with other state entities, to promote activities that will promote the skills of the country in terms of knowledge, sharing, and all that. That will enhance the capacity in terms of resources so that in the long run, SABC won't rely more in terms of treasury funding. They'll be able to generate more revenue for them, but also in terms of the TV license, in terms of payment. I mean, if most houses got DSTV, definitely it means they've got a TV. Now, there should be a system of tracking everybody who's got a DSTV who's not paying a TV license. Obviously, through the Access to Information Act, that information can be accessed, and SABC should be able to follow up. I mean, like a license that you pay every year.
So your idea is track down people who own TVs and make sure everyone pays their license, and that's your great idea how to better finance the SABC?
No, it's not to say it's a great idea per se. It's one of the suggestions that I can put on the table. I mean, there, as I indicated, issues of TVEC colleges. I mean, in terms of the SETAs generate 21 billion instead of the revenue. What can SABC do in collaboration with the SETAs, for an example, so that SABC can generate revenue and promote those programs for the skills development for this country? You look at the regional areas, what SABC can do in different provinces in terms of local content, in terms of languages to promote. There are many ideas that I can share with the board, and they'll decide which ones are the best. But I can give you what I've done before to showcase.
One great idea. You haven't given me one yet.
The one that I can give you, while I was still at Sabc Forestry, through privatization, most rural communities, contracts were given, and there was no supply or provision of food. I initiated, after reading a report from the University of Stellenbosch in terms of the kilojoules that forestry workers are losing per day, I initiated that we provide food free to contractor employees at SQF. We tried it for 6 months, and after we've tried it, Mondi took that project to roll it out throughout the Mondi forestry. And before I left Mondi, that project won a Mondi Global Diamond Award. And that's what I've initiated, and it's a success. Currently, Mondi is providing free lunch, food for all employees, free of charge. They don't pay, and that also helped us, because one of the things that was a challenge was during payments, people are not coming to work, and people are not getting proper food, and that it's there, it's happening. Thank you.
I asked for an idea about the SABC, and you haven't given me one, which is a bit disappointing, but thanks anyway for answering my question.
Honorable Davis.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, excuse me. Thanks, Chair. Thank you to Mr. Matsho. I've just really got one question, Chair. You have a very impressive CV. You've got lots of degrees and lots of qualifications in a variety of fields, and you also serve on many boards. In fact, you've had a very eclectic and varied career. But there's no real indication or experience, there's no real indication that you have any experience or even an interest in broadcasting. And that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from being appointed to the SABC board. And there might actually be good reasons to have people who have no experience in broadcasting on the board. But I'd like to hear from you. Why do you think that we should appoint you or recommend you for the appointment to the board, given that you've demonstrated no real interest or passion for broadcasting in your career so far?
Thanks, Honorable Davis. Me personally, as I indicated, where I've worked, I've delivered results as an executive, and where I chaired in terms of the board, the companies are sustainable. And I'm bringing experience in terms of audit, risk, finance, human resource. I've chaired subcommittees, and I did maths and science at matric. I never did accounting. I went to TEFLOOP. I was the best economic student. I joined oil industry without any background in oil industry. I succeeded. I went to forestry. I succeeded. Now coming to the broadcasting in terms of SABC, I'm a quick learner. For me, if I go through induction and through annual reports, the board charter, all the reports for me, within a short space of time, I'll be able to fit in and provide the skills and advice that can help the SABC board. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. It doesn't quite answer my question. I mean, why would we choose somebody who says that they're a quick learner over somebody with 10 to 15 or 20 years experience in broadcasting? Why would we take a risk on you? That's what I'm interested in. Why are you the guy that we're going to say, here's somebody who's got no experience in broadcasting, but he's a bit of a wild card, let's take a risk on him? Why would we do that instead of appointing people who've got demonstrable experience in broadcasting?
Okay, thanks, Honorable Davis. As I indicated previously, for me, acquiring knowledge is not a challenge. My experience through other boards, as an executive and as a board member, I'll be able to add value to the SABC board. Being in the broadcasting environment as an experience, for me, it's a plus for those who have been there, but for those who have not been there, should not be seen as a disadvantage, because the qualities and the independence and the skill that I bring to the board will obviously be different to somebody who has been there. And as I indicated before, I'll be equal to the task to deliver as a board member in terms of the charter and what is required for me. And given the chance, I can prove myself. I don't have a problem. Having experience, not having experience for me is, can you deliver for South Africa the result that the public is waiting there for the SABC? Thanks.
Honorable Doze.
Thank you. Now, you see, the reason why DSTV can do that, it's because it can switch off the set-top boxes or whatever those things are. Then you force people to pay. What essentially makes the SABC, it's free to air. It is essentially a free to air, service. How would you make money? How would you force people, to pay under those conditions? Because it doesn't look like you've thoroughly understood the suggestion you're giving us. It is defined by the fact that it gives free broadcasting to people.
I hope and wish that South Africans generally would not like to see a state asset that belongs to them, for them not to pay to kill it. As a responsible citizen, I believe that if I pay my license...
Your idea is we must switch off.
No.
Okay, so say what your idea is. SABC is essentially defined by the fact that it gives free to air broadcast. People can access it for free. Even if you don't pay, you get it. It's free. Pay TV is that if you don't pay, you do not get it. Those are the distinctions. What is your idea to improve fundraising?
Yes. Which one doesn't work?
The one you proposed earlier, it is a reflection of the fact that you haven't thought about what really is at stake between the two. The other one is free to air. It is essentially defined by the fact that it's free because it's the public broadcaster. How would you improve funding, raising fund and revenue for the SABC? We give you an opportunity again to answer that question.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Dr. Ndlozi. For me, as I indicated, that for the financial sustainability of the SABC board should look in terms of partnerships because the revenue comes from advertising and also from the licensing and also from the state in terms of funding from treasury. Now, we should look at that and look and say which out of all the sources of income, how do you improve on the advertising revenue? But for those who've got TVs, how do you encourage South Africans to pay everybody? Because when you buy a TV, you must produce a license to sustain that.
Okay, you haven't thought about this. Now, the last question is, what is the distinction between a public broadcaster and a state broadcaster?
Okay. A public broadcaster, in terms of the act, it provides, as you indicated, free services to the community like South Africans. And as a state broadcaster, because it's owned by the state as a 100% shareholder, it's a state entity, it's a state broadcaster. But for public, it offers free to air. It's not like DSTV where you have to pay before you get the channel.
So if it's a state broadcaster, because it's a state company, you pay. Is that what you're saying?
Say it's a state entity, but for the license, you are required to pay when you buy a TV.
What is the difference between a public broadcaster and a state broadcaster? Is it the paying? Is that your answer? What's your answer?
I'm not defining in terms of payment. I'm saying in terms of the state. A state broadcaster belongs to the state. The South African government is a state broadcaster. But in terms of public broadcasting, it belongs to the South African in terms of free to air. People don't have, they are not obliged in terms of that. But for the services, they pay a TV license.
Okay, my final answer. What would... Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. It is. What is the relevance? I put it to you that the distinctions you are drawing are wrong. Why would we put you on the board when you don't know the distinction between a public broadcaster and a state broadcaster? You want an orientation first after we have appointed you?
Not really an orientation. What I indicated is that all the board members, obviously when they're new or those who are coming back, there'll be
Should we appoint you
yes,
and then induct you after about what the difference is between state broadcaster and public broadcaster?
Not really. I'm indicating to you that board members go through inductions to make sure that they understand the policies, the governance, all the other acts that affect the institution. That's what I'm saying.
State broadcaster is what the SABC was under apartheid. Public broadcaster is what the act envisions. That's basic knowledge that you should know. Is it fair for us to put you in the board when you don't know that basic history and distinction between when the SABC is used by a state as a propaganda machinery and takes editorial decisions on one hand and what it is today? Is it fair to South Africa to put you on the board and then induct you after about that basic fact?
I can't make the call. The committee through parliament can decide who are the best.
Advise us, is it fair? Advise us, we'll take that decision. Is it fair?
Okay. Looking at my background and my credentials, I'm equal to the task. I can deliver.
No, it's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Matsho. Mr. Madisha.
Ntate Matsho, le kae?
Ke teng Morena.
Bonam, I'm taking from what they have raised. You see, South Africa is faced with an experience, if one were to put it in that way. And as the board, we need, you know, I mean, as a committee, we need a board with a multiplicity of expertise. Now, in your case, you are well educated, but then in one area only. That's the finances. Not, for example, the issue of broadcasting policy and technology is going to take time. Media, law, frequency planning, journalism, entertainment, labor, law. We have no qualifications in communications, no expertise, and so on and so forth. Now, this is obviously going to take a very, very long time, okay? And albeit you say that if you are appointed, within a very short period of time, you will be able to get all this information and move forward. I think there is a problem. Unless, of course, you go on and explain to prove that, yes, indeed, you'll be able to move forward properly. And merit to this point that I've raised is your true and real understanding of the role of the board that we are saying has got to be appointed. Do you understand? Do you know what the board has got to do, et cetera, et cetera? I'm saying that again, having cited all these particular points that I have, which I say, given the fact that you don't have an expertise there, we have a very serious problem. But I'm referring to myself, okay? And lastly, is the issue of the political control of the board. As you went on to give your history, you cited that because of, or it was as a sequel to a particular member, political leader, you know, that you were able to get this, you know, advantages and so on and so on. Is that not going to create problems there? You know, I would like to understand that. Will not sway you to say that that particular member or members should be given advantages. But then I end and shan't come back, a chairperson, to say, with all these particular areas, I think you are a bit weak, but then if you can say you will be able to handle this, one will be a positive. One good decision that. All right.
You have 1 minute left to
Yes.
respond.
In terms of all those areas we've indicated, journalism, technology, and all that, as I indicated, I've got knowledge in terms of corporate law, which it will be required at the board. But I hope and believe that through my MBL degrees and others, I've done courses in labor. I've chaired the HR committee in other boards. That experience I'll bring to the board. And other areas where I'm short, I'll be able to capacitate myself. I won't have a problem in that case. In terms of the board should lead the corporation in terms of strategy and give executives all the key areas to deliver and monitor in terms of that and report to the minister and also to the committee. In terms of the political control, any state entity where it's managed or controlled by the state, through the chair will engage the political head in terms of us getting a consensus. And if that is managed properly, I don't think there'll be a problem.
Thank you very much, members. That's it. You can ask questions to members if you like, if you have any.
No, for me, I just want to thank the committee to give me an opportunity to present myself. And in my home language, thank you.
Thank you very much, and apologies again to keep you waiting for such a long time. Thank you very much. Members, will take a few minutes to reflect. Members will take Tsamaya Mhlekazi. Tsamaya Mhlekazi. Members will take maybe up to 30 minutes to reflect on, up to you. It's up to you to reflect on what we have done. Unless we, members, unless you want to meet at 9 tomorrow before we start. Is 9 o'clock okay? Just to reflect, and then we're back here, Mus. Yes, we're back here. And lunch will be served here. 9 o'clock we'll be here and start reflecting on what we have done. Thank you very much, members. I am told that those who are traveling by bus, there is a bus at 9:30.